Good morning. Another story time. This one is another sad one, but this one is a lot more recent, and it hurts to say, but I filmed this 4 times now since pretty much last fall, and I've deleted every one just because I don't. It's taken a while to recover. I just saw a cardinal. A cardinal just flew like right in front of my truck. That was amazing. Anyway, a lot of people say cardinals are, I'm not even sure how to say it right. That when you see a cardinal, it's the spirit of a loved one you've lost or something like that, or it's somehow a reminder of a lost loved one, something to that effect. I probably just screwed it all up, but anyway. So, I grew up in poverty. When I say I grew up in poverty, I mean like mealy worms in the cornflakes. We would buy milk on sale and put it in the freezer. Our shoes had holes in them. Every bit of clothing was passed down or given to us from someone else. Like the dress I wore to my dad's funeral, my next door neighbor brought me out and bought that for me. So, my mother, I mentioned, maybe I didn't mention, was working on her master's degree when my dad died. And that's another story I'll get into at another time. When she finished her master's, she got a really good job at a company she hated, but they paid well. And she decided to have a house built in a much better neighborhood on the other side of town. So she was getting us out of the city. We lived in Orlando. It was on our address, it said Orlando, but we lived in a suburb of Orlando. It really wasn't a suburb. It was just one of those little weird side neighborhoods called Pine Hills, lovingly nicknamed Crime Hills. And it lived up to its name and still does. So she was excited to move us out of there. A little stressed at taking on a larger mortgage. So when I was 11, we moved into this new neighborhood. And we were one of the first families to move in there. A family that had already moved in was, they had 2 boys, one of which was my age, named Travis. So I was 11, Travis also 11. We went to the same middle school, same bus stop, rode the same bus to school, and we were friends. He was small for his age, but he was always kind. He was always friendly. And as he got older, he developed a love for motorcycles and all things vehicle and bike related, like just engines. And that was actually really cool because when my son started getting into dirt bikes, we were able to communicate a lot on that. So when the dirt bike got stolen, January, I think it was January, maybe February of 2020, we got it. The police found it, and it was being parted out when they found it. So it was, we got back the frame, and we got back several boxes with the pieces in it, and we needed to put this thing back together. Like, it was fun. Not fun at all. And I spent $100 just on like bolts and lines and like the motor mount and fuel lines and clips and just random things like that we never did get back because they were small pieces that the police were unaware of. So, me and Travis, and this, I'm 38? I think I'm 37. Anyway. Oh, yeah. So it's 2021. Maybe I'm 38 because my birthday's coming up in July. I am so confused right now on how old I am. Real life. This has been years. So my entire 30s. Me and Travis were still in contact. So it's been 30 plus years of contact, right? 20 plus years. Sorry. Let me fix that. Hey there. Okay. Trying to pick up where I left off. I knew Travis, again, from the age of 11, and being 38 now. That's a long time. I mean, let's see, 11, 21, 31, 27 years. Well, technically, I guess it was more like 26 years. So, like I said, nice guy, helpful, loved motorcycles, loved cars, loved fast engines. I believe he worked for a car dealership right before COVID, in the years before COVID. So, when that all kicked in, his job ceased to exist. I don't know if he was let go because I was insanely busy at work, but, and now this is broken up into 2 videos and 2 days, so I'm not exactly sure what I said in the other one. But the dirt bike of mine that was stolen just before COVID. So I believe it was February of 2020. And during the case, first of all, they picked up the wrong guy. And so anyway, I never got restitution, but he was so excited at the prospect of helping me and my son get it running again, putting it back together. So I basically went through it. I very carefully went through what we had, what was in good shape as far as the boxes, the contents of the boxes, and looked over the whole bike very carefully to see, okay, what lines do I need, what clips do I need, what bolts do I need, like the motor mount was missing, fuel lines were missing, and he was really into that, and he was very, very helpful. And it was one of those things where I sort of, I think I mentioned on Facebook what had happened. He saw that and he stepped in and said, hey, you know, any help you need. He actually even offered if I wanted to bring it down to Orlando and have him sort of get another set of eyes on it and maybe do a couple things to help. So he was just one of those people. Like, he had moods like the rest of us. I mean, he had good days and bad days, but for the majority, he wanted to be helpful. He was sweet and kind. Now, he was also going through that divorce. So he's got this divorce going on where the only child he's ever known and raised was his stepdaughter. So he's now lost not just his wife, but his only child, and which to him was his child. That was his daughter. And we're being told, okay, social distancing, and being in Orlando, I'm sure things were much more difficult as far as the restrictions and the rules and the lockdowns and all of that. I lived in a completely different type of area where masks were suggested but never enforced. We did briefly go through a curfew, I believe, and the police presence was heavy, for sure. I mean, on any given day, it was noticeable how many more officers and state troopers were just out and about, where normally you would never see them. So, he's got this divorce, he's got this lockdown, he's now out of a job. So, he was a social person, and he is now put in a position where he's alone a lot of the time. I was not aware of any problems that he had with depression or anxiety. He always seemed to me like the anxious type, but you never really know what's going on in someone's head. You never really know what's going on in someone's life. I wasn't going to ask him about the divorce because he just didn't seem to want to talk about it, and it's not my place to ask. You know, like I thought many times I thought, okay, well, how can I tactfully say, hey, are you doing okay? How's this going? But I've always been awkward like that. Like, in some situations, I'm all TMI and getting up into people's business. And then in others, I'll sort of stay off to the side, kind of try and keep myself out of the peripheral nonsense. Now, not saying what he's going through is nonsense. I didn't know where to even begin. So, he's going through all that. We were communicating. Everything was great, I thought, and I was wrong. Late summer, and mind you, I had been insanely busy all through, all year. So, and there'd been a lot going on. There was stuff going on with my family and work was really what was eating the majority of the time. I get a message from a friend of mine from elementary school. So she grew up in the same cruddy neighborhood as me. And we still knew each other and communicated. And sadly, her husband had died a couple years prior. He was hit on a bicycle. He loved cycling. I mean, he was a long distance rider, like through and through. And one evening, he and his buddies were out training, and he was hit and in a coma for over a year until the seizures became so frequent and so just devastating that they finally decided to let him go. I'm not going to say pull the plug, because you don't pull a plug. There are a series of machines that have to be disconnected, and then the person at their own time and own pace begins shutting down. So she calls, or she messages and says, did you hear what happened to T? It doesn't sound good when somebody says that. And I'm thinking motorcycle accident. Like, that was my first thought. I said, no. What's going on? He committed suicide. Shock. Absolute shock. And as it set in, I started thinking back to our conversations, and part of me was like, man, I wish I would have asked more. But then I realized that it probably wouldn't have done any good, because I wouldn't have been asking the right questions. Now, sometimes I'll have those days where I'll think, man, I wish I had never moved from Orlando. I wish I had just stayed. All my friends are there. Not all of them, but a lot of them. However, when I left Orlando, it was needed. It was something that, had it not happened, my life would have taken a very, very different route, and it would not have been good. But knowing he was gone from something that could have been prevented. At least I believe it could have been prevented. Was incredibly hard. And it still is. Like I said, I've made this video so many times and scrapped it every time because I don't feel like I have the right words, and I don't feel like I can accurately I don't feel like I can get across what it is that went through my mind. I mean, I'm sure everyone I'm speaking to has lost somebody either to a disease, an accident, or a suicide. I mean, pretty much everybody's been through it, or multiple times, or other really horrible situations. Anyhow, my whole point for this is to say, don't be afraid to ask the questions. Don't be embarrassed to bring up something that may allow a person to get something off their chest, because something I struggle with often, and I feel like I've said this before, is the ability to vent. And I vent to you guys. More often than not, I vent to you guys. And sometimes I don't publish it. Sometimes I just film it. And then either delete it or it just sits. But you've got to get things out sometimes. And pay attention for those little markers with people you know. That something's different, that something's not right. And you never know when you're going to save a life, because I ultimately, at the end of the day, feel like had things been different, had he been able to ride this out, he would be getting better now. Things would be, they wouldn't be peachy, but he'd at least have a chance. And I would absolutely have told him, hey, come stay up at my property for a couple of weeks, spend some time up here on the land, enjoy it, enjoy your time. If you don't like it, you can go home. But I think he would have had fun. I think he would have enjoyed it. But that can't happen now. So I would just instead of people always saying, oh, we lost all these people to COVID. No, damn it. The number of suicides is ridiculous. Just from this lockdown, just from this isolation, because not everybody's got a family that they're living with, or being locked in a house with their family has caused them to split up or need to be away from each other, and then somebody who needs it the most ends up alone. And then you run into this situation where the depression, the anxiety, the stress, all the things culminate and they stew, and all they have on their hands is time, and they're worried about money, and they're worried about, my anxiety and stress levels have been ridiculous for the last few years, not even counting COVID. Pre-COVID, I was beside myself more often than not. And the only time I have freedom from that is when I'm working. When I have something else that I can delve into and forget about my life. Not be worried about bills. Not be worried about how do I deal with my teenager. Not be worried about, oh, I still need to work on this, that, and the other at home. Not be worried about what's in the refrigerator right now, and do I need to stop at the store, and how long is that going to take, because then I still have to cook dinner and do laundry. All those things disappear when I'm working. And that's why I love my job. He was stuck at home. because all the car dealerships had to close down. I mean, most places had to close down. And if people didn't outright lose their jobs, they lost the ability to go to a place with people. And maybe that wouldn't have saved him, but I definitely think it would have put him in a position where people would have seen something was different, something was going on. You cannot take that many stressors and lay them on a person and expect them to be okay. We've all been through it the last couple of years. Some people more than others. Some people it really has not affected too much. But even the people who were very minimally affected still pulled in from all those around them and sort of took on that weight and took on that misery and took on that stress, and then ultimately ended up kind of in a weird headspace themselves, whether it wasn't necessarily stress that they were going through. You could see this heaviness, like people were snapping at each other and things just got weird because it wasn't, I mean, there's a lot, like just think about the last year and all the things that have gone down, the protests, the angry, violent, stressful, I mean, all these things go together. All these things are related, whether they look related or not, they are. So anyway, tell people you love them. Ask those questions even if they seem like maybe you're pushing. If you're pushing, they're gonna tell you no or they're not gonna answer. Big deal. If they get pissed at you, they get pissed at you. But if you are worth your salt, you will find a way to open up the communication with them again and get back on the right footing, just where you were before. You know, it's possible. You're capable of it. You know, let's show more love. Let's show more concern. Let's stop being so damn selfish and so damn stingy that we are showing people that not only do we care, that we're willing to show them and to put ourselves out there in a way that makes them feel loved, makes them feel like a human, you know, makes them feel real. I love all of you. Everybody on YouTube with like 2 million followers, which to me is hilarious. They're like, oh, I love you all. You know, they do that whole thing. They don't know those 2 million people. And if any of those people were to show up at their house, they would lose their damn minds. I can tell you, I would have lunch with, absolutely with my commenters. Like, I mean, there's one person who had commented a while back on some videos and said something mean about my daughter. My daughter was commenting. They're like, why is the same person always commenting? It was my young daughter. Like, I didn't ask her to do it. She's just silly, you know. But I would have lunch with these people and I actually care. And if any of you were to be like, hey, I'm having a rough time, give me your damn email address. We'll talk. Let's talk. Let's figure this out. Let's figure out what you need. You know, if you just want to vent, cool, I'm here for it. But let's find a way to get things back on track. Anyway, I'm at work now. Well, almost. But I'm gonna have to like mess with a gate and stuff. I hope you guys have a lovely day. I hope this story made some sense, but I'm just gonna say it. Travis, man, I know you're not here anymore, but you were awesome. And I hope you know that, and I hope you're still awesome. And to Travis's family, you can send me your email address and I'll shoot you my phone number. Because Travis was important to me. Anyway, have a good day.